Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This didn't happen to me, but I witnessed it. I don't remember the rank, I wish I had paid more attention to it, but I was too annoyed to care. So here's some background. I live in San Diego, we have a pretty big naval base, and I hope you know where this goes. I was at the store when this lady was shouting at the cashier. She was berating him, calling him all sorts of slurs. This dude looked like he was my age, 21. He looked nervous and bad with social skills. He tried to talk, but she kept yelling at him. What do you mean I can't use a military discount? I'm sorry, ma'am, but do you know who my husband is? His rank is X. I understand, but you yourself aren't military. I'm not sure how military discounts work or how this particular store does it, but boy, this lady needed to take a chill pill. As the lady was yelling at him, she screwed up big time when she kept saying some very obscene words to him. You stupid jerk. Learn how to do your freaking job. All you millennials are lazy and can't get a real job. You stupid N-word. People like you don't deserve to live and should rot in hell. The guy tells her, I work here because I go to college and need the money to support my education. Stop lying to yourself. You're too stupid to go to college. If you can't even help me, then what makes you think you belong in college? At this point, I was about to step in, but the man in front of me spoke up. I did not realize it, but this dude was in his naval uniform. With a deep, commanding voice, he silences Karen. Ma'am, you need to stop right there. What you're doing is inhumane and entitled. I am not serving our country for people like you to berate others. You cannot wear your husband's rank. He's serving the country, not you. You don't get to use a discount for something that you didn't earn. Who are you? My husband is X rank. You can't talk to me like that. Still in his deep, militant voice, the naval man is asserting his dominance. I don't care what your husband is. I'm a rank higher than your husband's, and I will see to it that your husband gets a warning for your behavior. If you want him to keep his job, he needs to stop wearing his rank. You understand me? Karen then nodded her head with a look of, I totally just screwed up. Now apologize to this young man. He's free to be who he is, and you will give me the name of your husband. I'm planning on having a meeting with him tomorrow. But… Now. Karen apologized to the cashier, gave the man her husband's name and other information, and walked away with her head hanging in shame. The cashier thanked the man and gave him the military discount, plus another discount for helping him. The lesson of the day is, don't wear your spouse's rank and expect the same treatment. Your spouse is the one serving the country, not you. I'm originally from Sydney, Australia. And around 2001, I started working for a smash repairs company. Now, I know that in the US, the insurance industry is slightly different from here. 1. We don't pay an excess or are penalized if we put a not-at-fault claim in and can identify at the at-fault party. 2. If additional damage is found when the car is stripped down, work stops until an assessor can check to see if it's consistent with the accident. If it is, then the extra work is immediately authorized and added to the scope of works. 3. When the work is finished, the repairer submits their invoice directly to the insurance company, who pays the repairer directly, less any excess which the owner would pay upon picking up the vehicle. Yep, no getting a check sent out to the insured and then the insured having to bring the check and their excess payment in. This story is set back in the old days when you would have to physically swipe the credit card on the imprint machine, which would copy the details using carbon paper. The customer would then have to sign the paperwork. I always made sure I checked the signature against the card. My grandfather had had his credit card stolen while in hospital when I was younger, and the person who stole the card was signing the slips with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. But the staff accepting the card never checked the signatures. The people got away with jewelry and alcohol. Fortunately, we reported the card stolen very quickly, so my grandfather didn't lose any money, especially since the signatures didn't match the recorded signature the bank had on file. Anyway, I digress. So this car is ready and I ring the owner and let him know that he has to pay the excess before we will release the card to him. The gentleman is Asian and gives me a credit card to swipe. The signature is Asian characters, but they don't match the signature on the reverse of the card. I can't tell if the card is for a male or female, not knowing the gender or the name on the front. So I ask him if it's his card. No, it's my mom's. Just put it through. I'm sorry, I can't do that. The owner of the card is the only one who can sign and authorize the transaction. But she can be here and gave me her card to pay for the excess. Just put it through. I legally cannot do that, sir. You will have to get your mom down here to sign, or I can't release the car. When his mom turns up an hour later, a yelling match ensues. He had taken his mom's card without permission and had never even discussed using her card to pay the $500 excess for his driving mistake. 10 minutes, the mom yells at her son, early 20s. She thanks me for being diligent enough to check the signature before she reluctantly signs the slip. More yelling and her telling her son that he's going to repay the money with interest. For those asking, the son just thought he would stick the bill to his mom and take no responsibility. He planned on disputing the charge because of the wrong signature, but I didn't let him get away with it. Even though I'm Anglo, growing up, my family were close to several Cantonese families. We used to watch Jackie Chan movies in Cantonese with no subtitles. So it picked up a lot of the language, which is how I was able to get the gist of what was being said. Of course, I haven't had to use it in 15 years, so I have forgotten most of what I learned. I was reminded of this incident yesterday during a phone call with a friend from my college days. For a little background, my friend, I will call her Jill, and I were both about 19 or 20 years old at the time of the incident in 1983. Do the math, and yes, I am that old. Because Jill was blind, ocular melanoma, important later, she had an advocate. There is another name for this, but for the life of me, I can't think of what it is. But you give the idea. She had an advocate that went everywhere with her on her university campus. They made sure she made it safely to and from each of her classes and assisted her with tests taken and so on. We met when Jill walked by my table in a student union hall, bumped my coffee and spilled it all over both of us. We've been friends ever since. Because Jill lived off campus with her parents and I lived in an off-campus apartment a few blocks away, I drove every day to school. We coordinated our class schedules so that I could drop her off to her advocate in the morning and in the afternoon. The advocate would bring her to me and I would take her home. This one particular semester, Jill's last class on Monday, Wednesday and Friday ended an hour before mine. Normally, her advocate would hang out with her in the student union hall to wait for me. Since it was Friday, Jill insisted that the advocate bring her to the building where I had class and she would just wait for me there, closer to where I parked the car, and the advocate could go home a little early. This was something Jill did occasionally just to be nice. I always took the same route out of the building and knew to be on the lookout for her. This day, Jill was in her usual spot in the lobby. She was sitting on the floor. There were no seats, with her back against the wall, her cane folded beside her, tinted glasses on and appearing to stare straight ahead. To Jill's left were the lobby doors, about 30 feet away. Jill thinks she'd been sitting there for maybe 50 to 55 minutes when she heard what sounded like squeaky wheels rolling over the floor. She didn't bother to call out and just thought it was maybe the janitorial staff with those mop buckets on wheels getting an early start on mopping. Then she heard someone push the panic bar on one of the lobby's double doors and the wheels banging over the metal threshold. A moment later, a woman's voice filled the empty lobby. The conversation that ensued is the best of Jill's in my memory. "What the hell is wrong with you, young people? Never in my life have I seen so many inconsiderate brats in all my life." Jill was confused and said, "I'm sorry." "And you should be, young lady. You could see that I needed help with this hand truck." An upright metal thing with two wheels and a small base to put heavy stuff on to move it from one place to another. "But you just sat there and did absolutely nothing. Didn't anyone teach you manners?" "I didn't see you." "How could you not see me? I'm the only other person here." "I'm sorry, but I didn't see you, I am blind.
You really expect me to believe that? Blind people can't go to college. You're just too lazy to get off the floor.
Jill pulled her cane around, unfolded it, and got to her feet. Yes, ma'am, I'm blind and I can go to college. Me, rounding the corner, asked what's going on. Classes were letting out and students are beginning to leave or change classes.
This girl expects me to believe she is blind.
Well, she is.
That's a load of crap. Prove it.
The woman walks up to Jill and takes the tinted glasses from her face.
See?
She directs this to the students who were hanging around to watch the drama, as if she expected them to agree with her or take her side.
She can see. There is nothing wrong with her eyes. She's not really blind.
As I stated earlier, Jill had ocular melanoma. As a result, her eyes were surgically removed, and she was fitted with a prosthesis that looked real at a quick glance but didn't move like normal eyes and were a bit flat in their color. It was kind of like looking into the eyes of a very old doll. However, the best part of Jill's eyes, they were removable. Jill reached up, popped one eyeball out, and held it out to the woman. Here, look through this and tell me if you can see anything. This lady started backing away and screeching loudly.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
The woman backed away from us so fast, she tripped over either her own feet or those of gathering students, landed on her butt, and continued to scoot away. When she got to the door, she pulled herself up, grabbed her hand truck, and left. Jill maneuvered the eye back into the socket. The small crowd of students started clapping and laughing, and a few gave Jill a pat on the back. Jill sighed dramatically and said, "So much for that lady seeing things through my eyes." This happened a few days ago and I'm still really in disbelief. I like fishing and my style is mostly done from sandy beaches. It's 5:30 in the morning in early March and of course no one is there. I chose a place near my parking spot so that it would be easier for me to transfer all my fishing gear. Just so you know, fishing with poles in my country is legal in every beach as long as there is no umbrellas, but out of courtesy I never do it in the timeline that normally people swim in. So mostly really early in the morning or after sunset. I started fishing completely alone on a huge beach, 5 kilometers of sandy beach, and it's so relaxing just watching the sunrise, drinking my coffee, listening to the waves and enjoying life. At about 8 p.m., a car parks next to mine. Strange since it was a huge parking lot, but at the same time I was bringing in a fish and didn't give too much attention. 2 old ladies came out of the car and came and sat right next to me. Again, we are alone in a huge beach completely empty, and I smile at them thinking they probably saw that I just caught a nice fish and they are just curious. Boy, was I wrong. They both started walking towards the sea right in between my fishing poles. Excuse me, can you go like 10 meters away to swim? I am fishing right here and it might be dangerous for you.
Always swim here,
one of them says and continues to move towards the sea. Yeah, you can swim here, just go 10 meters left or right from the poles. As you can see, I am fishing here. The other Karen spoke up as well.
She told you that we are always swimming here. You should move.
But I'm here now. The beach is empty and I'm already set up. Can you please move just a bit to the left or to the right?
You shouldn't be here. This is where we swim.
As I continue going in the sea right in between of my poles, I look at them as they slowly go in. Not wanting to escalate the situation, I started to roll in one of the poles so that I will go a bit further from them, afraid that they could get hurt even if the odds of them stepping on a hook was minimum, since I threw them about 100 meters away in a depth that they couldn't really reach bottom. Before I managed to finish the first, one of them, who was in the sea up until her knees, just touched the line of the second one. She started screaming. There goes my relaxing Sunday morning. They both came out yelling at me that they could get hurt and that they will call the police because it was illegal for me to be there. And so they do. I told them that I warned them that I was fishing and nothing really happened, but they were having none of it. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. They went there almost running as soon as the officers parked and started yelling.
I followed them to tell my side of the story.
What seems to be the problem here?
This man was fishing here while we were swimming, and I almost died because of him. You should arrest him. He tried to hurt my friend.
And how did he try to do that?
I was tangled in his line, and I almost drowned.
Where did you get tangled?
Here. She shows the officer her arm.
There is no mark or anything indicating that you struggled.
She almost died, officer. Arrest him right now, it's your job.
The police officer who's talking to them sees the empty beach, the two crazy old ladies yelling at him, not a mark on them, and they are not even wet, and then asks me what happened. Well, officer, I was fishing here when these two ladies came 20 minutes ago and sat right next to me. As you see, the beach is completely empty, but they chose to come here because, as they said, this is where they swim. I warned them that I was fishing and that they should just go a bit further, but they didn't listen. I started rolling in the poles to eliminate any chance of them getting hurt until one of them just touched the line and started screaming.
He's lying. We were here first and he just came and started fishing.
I am literally here for almost 3 hours now. Then something really cool happened. The officer asks which one is my car and which one is the old lady's. I show him my car and he goes there and touches the hood. Then he proceeds to touch the old lady's car. He then returns to us. Do you know that it's illegal to lie to a police officer, furthermore accusing someone falsely? Both crazy ladies looked in disbelief. Another officer shakes his head and asks, "Why would you do that, ladies? Sir, would you like to press charges?" "Yes, sir, I would. Please, ladies, put your hands behind your back. You are under arrest." They looked terrified and compliant. You can see the shame in their eyes, and I'm smiling, thinking, God, these two officers were so good at their jobs. It could have been such a different story if someone else was here. So for the next 3 to 4 hours, I was in a police station waiting to give my statement, smelling fishy and certainly wasn't as relaxing as planned. At least I wasn't arrested. I ended up dropping the charges since I have spoken with one of their kids who was quite reasonable and apologetic, but still, that went into the record and probably won't try something like that in the future to me or anyone else after this humiliating experience. Bit of a warning for the queasy. Descriptions get a little graphic, the background is kinda long, but it's important for the story to understand how ridiculous this nurse was and how clumsy I am. Background. Way back in the magical year of 2000, I was a teenager attending a summer camp. Usually, it was day only. Tons of outdoor activities, canoeing, hiking, swimming, archery, the works. I did not break my arm doing any of these. For the older 2 years of kids, they would host an overnight in tents once a month. I was 13 and finally allowed to go and very excited. Got my tent, sleeping bag and friends. The night went as you would expect when there is 20 13-year-olds in tents with the adults nearby. We tried to pull as many stupid stunts as we could get away with. I got dared to stand on a picnic table and dance. 13-year-olds aren't very creative, so I got up there and did. In the dark, while it was raining. I did not break my arm dancing on a wet table in near darkness. When we'd all had a good laugh, I went to step down using the bench and missed. My leg plunged down in the gap between the bench and the table. I went down and forward, hit the bench on my way, pivoted around it really fast, and landed on my outstretched hands. There was an audible snap. My left forearm, bearing my full weight and sudden deceleration, snapped in half. Didn't even break the skin. I remember rolling over, seeing my arm was suddenly to elbows, panicking, and pushing it back into place. Not perfectly obviously, it was broken, but it was no longer at a 90-degree angle. And that's when it started hurting a lot. The ambulance took forever to get to us as they kept missing the turn-off for the campsite. I found out later they drove past it for most of that time. Eventually, it arrives. I am loaded in and it's off to the hospital. When we finally arrived, it's been about an hour since I broke my arm. I've been in intense pain the whole time and the EMTs hadn't given me anything for it. I don't remember why. The whole ride was very fuzzy for me. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. I get brought into the main desk/triage area. This hag of a woman with a permanent resting witch face starts asking me questions while the EMTs are standing by me after telling her what they knew. It's a bit fuzzy, but the gist was this.
So, what happened?
I fell and broke my arm. It really hurts. The EMT said you could give me something while I wait. The nurse rolls her eyes and makes a noise.
We have to get your arm x-rayed first to make sure it's really broken. We can't give you anything until we're sure. Now go and take a seat.
I'm sure. It broke in half. The nurse, smirking.
Really? You broke it in half? Well, prove it. I swear, I get kids like you all the time looking for drugs.
Now I am beyond pissed. I've been in agony for over an hour and this woman is treating me like absolute garbage. Even if it were just a sprain, shouldn't that warrant some kind of pain management? I'm holding my arm, think for a second, and decide. Screw it. As the EMTs are about to interject, I raise my left arm, grab the far end of my forearm with my right hand and push. It bends. Very, very far. Her face drains of all color and she looks like she's going to be sick. She immediately gets on the phone. I'm now in 10 times the amount of pain, but I'm grinning as only a disturbed teen can. It took them less than 5 minutes to put me in a room, pump me full of morphine, set my arm in a temporary wrap, then they x-rayed me and scheduled the surgery. I had a plate and 5 screws put in, along with a full cast that I kept on for about 6 weeks. They took the plate and pins out 6 months later. It was very painful and annoying, but other than a gnarly scar, my arm is totally fine. Thinking back on it 20 years later, well, still worth it. And now to some questions and answers. Q. How did you break your arm to do that? 90 degrees is impossible. The answer. Both bones in my forearm essentially shattered. They called it a green stick fracture. I didn't know that it was exactly 90 degrees, but unfortunately I left my retractor in my other pants. But it did look like a second elbow. That was freaky enough. Question. What about nerve and circulation damage? I was really lucky. The doctor told me after I came out of the surgery that it was a good thing I pushed it back when I first broke it. The position it was originally in was cutting off circulation and I probably would have lost the arm. That's what he told me anyway. Question. How did you push your arm like that through all that pain? Well, I was in so much pain, I was quite literally delirious. It was a snap decision and really not smart. But I'm also proud of 13-year-old me. It was cool. I don't think I could do that now. Question. The EMTs didn't do anything wrong and so on. No, they were really nice from what I remember. Where was this? Southern Ontario, Canada. Where were your parents? It was about 3 a.m. at this point. The camp had been trying to call my dad the whole time, but he slept through it for quite a while. One of the camp counselors rode with me in the ambulance. Apparently, he was more shaken up by the whole thing than I was. He didn't come back for a few weeks. My dad eventually picked up, rushed over immediately and felt really bad. I was already under by this point when I woke up to him in my room. He's a good dad. This didn't happen. Well, it did. Sorry if you don't believe me, but that's okay. My wife and I moved into a 64-townhouse community that was 10 years old at the time. The HOA board was composed of 5 members that were original homeowners when the community started and have been the sole board members since the community started. Their sense of entitlement was crazy. They thrived on their quarterly walkthrough of the neighborhood as they would write up every single home for some kind of violation regardless of how minor the offenses were. Everyone gets a violation letter. Our first letter the first month living there was that our garage door paint was starting to peel. It was a 2-centimeter scrape where the panels met. It needed to be repainted. The siding needed to be power washed. There was a patch of green moss behind a bush, and the sliding door on a deck was dirty. There was dirt on the bottom of the door from recent rain, and it needed to be washed. We had 30 days to fix the issues or begin accruing a fee of $25 a day until they are resolved. I asked around and everyone gets these ridiculously petty letters every quarter. No matter what you did to maintain your townhome, you were going to get a letter about something. As this was going on, none of the major items the neighborhood needed fixed were addressed. After a decade since the construction, the ground had settled unevenly, and many homes had standing water issues where it wouldn't drain after a storm. The rainwater would sit for 5 to 7 days in people's lawns. And more importantly, there had been a legal fight with the town since the community started about our road being dedicated, meaning the town was responsible for snow removal. Our HOA dues included paying for our own snow removal, which we shouldn't have to, and we were paying an attorney for 10 years to fight this with no resolution in sight. Fast forward 2 years and a few of us had enough and decided to band together to replace the board at the next annual meeting. The existing board got wind of this and hit us all with pages worth of issues with our properties, since if you have outstanding issues, you are not in good standing with the community, thus cannot run for a board position or even vote for those running. This petty move brought the community even closer, and we all spent the weekend before the meeting helping each other clean out their HOA honey-do lists. We took pictures, documented everything, then we had the US mail certified delivery of each packet with the completed list and photos to the HOA board who lived 75 feet away. Come board night, oddly enough, the lawyer was there to give an update that no progress has been made with the township on dedicating our road. He stuck around as we moved to the elections for the next board. We brought our signed petitions to add our names to the ballot. The board says we're not eligible as we all have outstanding issues with our property. We call Paul Crab with our receipts from the post office that they received our completed lists with documentation. They reply that they haven't reviewed them yet. We tell them that's not our problem, we are in good standing. The lawyer overheard this and states that we are eligible to be on the ballot if we can confirm the issues with our homes were resolved prior to the meeting. The HOA president glares at the lawyer, but the lawyer just shrugs, saying, "The rules are the rules." With the exception of the 5 existing board members voting for themselves and each other, we are voted in nearly unanimously to replace them. I led the revolution because I was tired of the petty nonsense when there were real problems in the neighborhood. Sadly, the rest of the elected board members voted me as president. I have no idea what I'm doing, but we spent the next few sessions removing all the dumb violations from most of the neighbors. We went through the bylaws to really focus on what's important. What happens next? Ends up that the lawyer was a friend of the previous president and was in no hurry to resolve anything as he was enjoying our excessive bill. I notify him if it's not resolved in the next 6 months, I'll find a new representation. He was actually good at his job when pressed to do it. He won the case, and the town appealed and tried to drag it out. He fast-tracked the appeal as it had been going on for 10 years, and we won the appeal too. The town dedicated our road, and then the lawyer pressed that it should have been done years ago. It wasn't him slowing things down, but the town. He ends up getting us a settlement from the judge for back pay on us paying for snow removal that the town was responsible for. We ended up using that settlement to have French drains installed across much of the community to clear the standing water issues. With the money left over, we fixed a lot of the neighborhood issues that the HOA should have been doing the whole time. Fences and sidewalks in disrepair, replaced dead trees and shrubs and so on. It was great, getting all that done without having to hit our capital reserve fund. I remained president until we moved a few years ago. Our family began to outgrow the townhome. Now we live in a new, larger development with a new HOA. I was asked to run for a position on it. I replied, not a freaking chance. But I will lead a coup d'etat if I need to. Edit. As to the original HOA president, 50 years old male, he wasn't actually eligible to be president. He wasn't on a mortgage. The townhome was in his mom's name. No one knew because he held the books. So being the vengeful leader at the next annual meeting, I wait until ex-president shows up with his petition to try and get his position back. I tell him in front of the other 60-plus homeowners that he can't even be at the meeting, let alone vote or be on a ballot as his name isn't on a property, but his mom is eligible if she wants to. And that was embarrassing enough for the entitled little prick.